Hello guys, welcome to this video lesson by LaunchPad Education. In this video, we are going to learn about the institutions and bodies of the EU. In the previous video, we learned when, why and how was the EU created. So now you are aware about the history of the European Union. If you have not seen that video, I request you to go to the LaunchPad Education YouTube channel and quickly watch that video. In this video lesson, we are going to discuss certain important institutions which frequently appear in the news these days. As Brexit is happening, that is, Britain is exiting the European Union. So certain institutions and bodies, for example, the EU Commission, European Parliament, European Council, these are certain bodies which keep appearing in the news very frequently. So to understand Brexit, to understand EU, it is very important that you have certain basic knowledge of all these institutions and what they do. So starting with the discussion, these are certain institutions and bodies that we are going to discuss today in this video lesson. European Parliament, European Council, Council of the EU, European Commission, Court of Justice of the EU, European Central Bank. These are very important ones. There are many other institutions and bodies also related to EU, but they are not very important. Some of these are named here like European Court of Auditors and European Investment Bank. These are also visible in the newspapers very frequently, so these have been named, but these are not very important to be understood that deeply. So starting with the discussion with European Parliament, like any other parliament in any other democratic country or a democratic political union like the EU is, Parliament has one role, that is lawmaking. In every parliament, you have members of parliament which are directly elected by the people in that territory. So in the European Parliament, you will find 751 members of parliament and they are known as members of European Parliament or the MEPs. Now this parliament is directly elected after every 5 years. So elections for the European Parliament, they will happen after every 5 years, and the last elections were held in May 2019, very recently. Second major body is the European Council. Now, what is the role of European Council? It sets political agenda. It only sets political agenda. So we are not saying that they are going to pass or draft any laws. It represents the highest level of political cooperation. So that means when we are saying highest levels of political cooperation, that means the prime ministers, the presidents, the chancellors of the European countries are going to come into the European Council and set the political agenda for EU as a whole. So it is made of heads of state, which I just told you, prime ministers, presidents of the government of each EU country. They decide on the EU's overall direction and political priorities, but does not pass any law. They set EU's common foreign as well as security policy. So the important thing here is that they are not passing any law. This is very important to understand the difference between European Council and the next body, that is Council of the European Union. Now, what is the difference between European Council and Council of the European Union? Basically, this is a decision-making body and they also pass the laws. In the Council of EU, government ministers from each EU country meet to discuss, amend and adopt laws and coordinate policies. So here government ministers are meeting. In the European Council, heads of states like the prime minister, presidents, they were meeting. Now, if the EU is deciding on certain financial policy, all the finance ministers of EU countries are going to come into the Council of EU to discuss, to amend and to adopt the laws and coordinate their policies. Now, together with the European Parliament, which was the first body that we discussed, Council of the EU, these two are the main decision-making bodies of European Union. As we discussed, European Council was just setting the broad political, economic, foreign policy agenda for the EU. Now, so summing up the difference between European Council and the Council of EU. European Council, it sets the broad agenda, while Council of the EU, they negotiate and they vote on the laws. Next important body, which is always on the news these days when Brexit is happening, it is the European Commission. It is EU's executive arm In any country, the executive arm is responsible for executing the decisions or the laws made by the parliament. So the previous two bodies that we discussed, they were the decision making bodies. These are the executing bodies of European Union, that is European Commission. Now it implements the decisions of European Parliament and Council of the EU. These two bodies are the decision making bodies. European Commission executes their decisions. Now the third leg, after legislature, after executive, the third body is the judiciary. Now this is Court of Justice of the EU. Now it interprets the laws that have been made by all these EU countries to make sure it is applied in the same manner in all EU countries. After interpreting EU laws, if there is any dispute between the EU countries or EU institutions, Court of Justice of EU is going to settle those legal disputes as well. Apart from this, any individual, company or organization, if they feel that any EU institution has violated their rights, they can also go to the Court of Justice of EU. So these three are the major roles performed by Court of Justice of the EU. Next is the European Central Bank. European Central Bank, like any other central bank, like the Reserve Bank of India, which is India Central Bank, they do certain functions like they manage the euro, which is the currency of European Union, and the Eurozone. If you don't know the difference between European Union and Eurozone, please refer to the video that I told to you in the beginning of this video, why, when, and how was the EU created. So European Central Bank is managing the euro and it is framing and implementing EU's economic and monetary policy. Its main aim is to keep prices stable and therefore support the economic growth and employment creation in European countries. So these are some of the major institutions and bodies of European Union. This video was presented to you by LaunchPad Education. Thank you very much for watching. For more such videos, please subscribe to the channel.